This video is brought to you by Hit Point Press and their Big Bad Booklet series. This month, come meet the twisted, tangled plant monstrosity, Emmeline Killjoy. Learn more at bigbads.com. And by Steamforged Games and their Epic Encounters series. With just $1, you can run an awesome cinematic adventure that your players will never forget. Use our link below the video to see all the Epic Encounter adventures. Hello and welcome to the Gallant Goblin. Today I wanted to tell you about the new Pathfinder adventure path for the winter of 2022, Quest for the Frozen Flame. It is a 3-part adventure running from January to March in which you play scouts in a nomadic tribe in the northern lands known as the Realm of the Mammoth Lords. This is an adventure in which you'll be leading your following through dangerous territory, braving colossal megafauna, dealing with mysterious fey creatures, enduring the elements, and trying to stay one step ahead of a rival tribe that is trying to destroy you. This is an adventure path that actually really surprised me. And to help me wrap my brain around it, one of the authors of the first book of the adventure path, Broken Tusk Moon, is here to answer my questions. None other than Mr. Ron Lundeen. He is also currently spearheading a Kickstarter right now for his own level 1 to 20 adventure path using Pathfinder 2nd edition rules called the Skaldwood Blight that I will have to ask him about. But let me give you just a little bit of a lowdown about Broken Tusk Moon first. This is an adventure path for a group that's ready to get back to nature. At least in book 1 here, you're going to be spending almost all of your time outdoors. I don't think there's a single building in the entire book. So if you're eager to play a ranger, a druid, a barbarian, or maybe even a witch, this adventure is going to be perfect for you. But the Broken Tusk following, the tribe that you're going to be a part of, is a tribe that welcomes lost souls from everywhere. So you can make most any class and ancestry work here. This adventure also makes use of the leadership system first introduced in the Game Mastery Guide. Your following is an organization. You'll start off with 74 members, and that number will increase or decrease based on your actions. You may be able to recruit folks you find along the way, even folks that initially seem hostile. And you can also learn skills to help you tame some of the wildlife that you come across to bring them into the fold as well. The more powerful folks you'll recruit can become lieutenants in your following, which makes them eligible to be an extra party member controlled by your GM for those times when you think it might be useful to have a little more firepower or a specialized skill set. They'll gain XP as well, but they'll also want a share of the loot. To that end, a lot of the encounters in this adventure can be solved without resorting to combat if you bring the right set of skills to the table. And there are members of your following that can teach you those skills in the form of feats. In fact, the adventure comes with 3 new skill feats, 4 new snares that you can craft, 3 new spells, and a new game hunter archetype. The adventure also has you learning about the history of your tribe, discovering what caused a schism a few generations ago, and trying to find a powerful artifact in the Frozen Flame itself. So allow me to welcome the co-author of Broken Tusk Moon, the prolific adventure path writer and Pathfinder's development manager, Mr. Ron Lundeen. Ron, thank you again for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me back.
You are our first twofer on the Gallant Goblin, so...
oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yes.
I'm very honored.
Well, I hope that, we're going to continue to try to keep you in the lead. So we start to get other people back again. If we get Logan back again or somebody, we're just going to have to pull you back for the next thing you write.
All
to
righty.
Make sure
Can
you get the
do.
first 3
Can do.
Okay. I appreciate that. How is everything going? I know that running a Kickstarter is a full-time job in itself. So how are you holding up? How's it going?
Oh, goodness. It's actually, the excitement is carrying us all forward here. The Skaldwood Blight level 1 through 20 adventure path, so very sort of deep, sort of a really hefty amount of stuff. But a lot of the writing has been done. I've been burned by too many of those Kickstarters where they never actually really started until they got the money. No, we're mostly done. So I for myself, I wouldn't feel good about putting one up unless I was just about ready to go, at least, and that's the case here. It's been a lot of excitement. We hit our funding goal in a week, and
Yes.
We've just announced some stretch goals. And the stretch goals are all things that will help pull people into the campaign a little bit more. Here's some backgrounds. Here's a gazetteer with more information. Here's sort of a design diary about stuff we're doing. So we really want to make it something that GMs can really make their own. So it's exciting. A lot of that is really, really carrying through some of the more tedious parts of running a Kickstarter.
Oh, I can understand that. Why don't we start with Skaldwood Blight then? Why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe the setting of the adventure to start with?
Oh, that's good, and it'll actually segue really well into into Broken Tusk Moon. The Skaldwood Blight is it's game world agnostic in that it's intended to be dropped into any game world that you've got. It's not Galarian specific for the for Paizo's world, but it's in the far frozen northlands of anywhere. It's a lot of stereotypical. It's some Viking and icy forest fae, demons, devils. You can pull a lot of that stuff together. Frankly, a lot of my inspiration was a lot of the old Conan stories where there are some city-states that have their own degrees of corruption in them, but the wilderness in between is dangerous and wild. So it's that sort of thing. If you were going to set it in Galarian, it would be very appropriate for the Sarkoris Scar, which is the far northland, a lot of primal dangers and things like that. So that's really the feel of it. But if your game world has a north that goes up towards the icy northish poles, then this is the place to put it.
And it is written with Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules. And I was gonna, how does it compare to a typical Pathfinder adventure path when you're opening up and looking at it? Now, this is one you wrote level 1 to 20, so it's not a 6-part book, but like, how does it compare?
You're gonna look at it and you're gonna think, this is really more of a skeleton than a lot of the other adventure paths we do. I feel like the adventure paths we do for Paizo are great for telling a very complete and comprehensive story. We're going to give you illustrations of every NPC and sometimes very, very deep backgrounds for them, so you can really take what's written there on the page and kind of get into the meat of it. Skaldwood Blight is not like that. It is not like 6 Paizo adventure paths bundled together with a hardcover on it and called it good. No, there are a lot of I guess a skeletal is a good way to put it, encounters. It'll say, look, here is the creature that stole this thing. Here's how they're running away. The PCs are going to catch up to them in a forest and then fight them. You don't get a map of the forest. You've got forest maps. You can put together in the middle of a forest map. And then I'll have all the stats. You don't need to crack open a bestiary or anything like that. I'm going to make sure I've got all the stats for you. So whoever it is that's running away with the thing, all you know is that they're running away with a thing and you're going to catch up to them. Not a lot of deep motivations about the theft, not a lot of skill challengey type things about how to get the thing that was stolen away. There's a little bit of that, but it's fairly light on that. I really hope that GMs and players can take a lot of the framework that is provided and then flesh it out into a story that's really their own. Here's maybe a better way to put it. At Paizo, we'll give some really deep NPC backgrounds for specific people, and then we'll also give like little hooks, right? Here's a person in town who happens to sell potions but is cursed. We don't go, but that's the kind of NPC everybody ends up hinging their whole campaigns on, right? They're like, oh, we care about this person that had like one line of throwaway text about who they are. So what I've done is I've kind of given you one line of throwaway text for everybody so that whatever the players decide to sort of make their own really becomes the hook that you can then sort of flesh out more. And then later on, I might say something in the adventure path like, and this person's been kidnapped. Which person? Whichever one they liked, right? So...
But it is a sort of it does progress. Like it is a kind of a main antagonist in the Devil Lord, I believe it is, or Demon Lord. It's not Tree Raiser. It's
that's right. It's Tree Reaver. It's Tree Raiser.
Yeah,
basically. Tree Raiser. It's a proper name, and even though it's in the bestiary, I thought that sounds like Paizo's intellectual property. I would rather be safe than get into a fight with my employer. So I changed it. I changed it to a different name from Tree Raiser to Tree Reaver, but it is alphabetically you would see in the same place in the bestiary if you go looking for a picture of it. That's
if you want to have a good mini for it, there is a Tree Raiser mini that you can maybe substitute in.
I had no idea that was coming, and as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is going to all dovetail so well.
We just covered that recently. If you want to go see that Tree Raiser mini, it's in the eye in the corner of your screen right now. It's a great mini, so that's a good one for this campaign. But it is a story, right, that goes from the beginning to and kind of progresses up and up. So it's a skeletal story.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's got a lot of, no skeleton's going to be complete without sort of the framework. Here's an initial town that you're probably from that you want to protect, and they get attacked by agents, evil agents, and bad things happen. Somebody you thought was good ended up being in league with some evil forces. You got to go find from them. There's a couple of detours along the way. Oh, there's some hint of devil corruption. Well, devil corruption is separate than the demon lord and the demons that are running around. But demons and devils don't like each other. So you follow that thread. It gives you some clues for the main plot. Everything is handled really with a good through line. And we've got a couple of places where we're making sure to anchor you as the reader through. You're like, okay, remember this thing happened. This is what happens as a result. And the next thing that's going to happen, you'll see in chapter 15, 16. Being able to play with the structure a little bit let me do some things that I really like. One thing that I've actually put into just about all of the Paizo adventure paths that I do is every chapter is one complete level of play. Mm-hmm. But when I have everything in a book, I number the chapters based on the level. It's as easy as that. You're in chapter 13. Okay, you're 13th level PCs. You don't need to sort of wonder what the appropriate challenge is when you're in chapter 6. That's for 6th level PCs. They finished chapter 6. They're 7th level now. Mm-hmm. So trying to be very straightforward about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, in looking through the summary that y'all posted online recently, it looks like each kind of chapter might be a little bit kind of self-contained as well, that you're kind of telling a little story in there. So might it be something, too, that, GMs who are looking to kind of craft their own campaigns might be able to kind of pick some interesting stories and encounters out of and kind of mix and match a little bit to work in their own stories?
Absolutely. And you'll be able to see that there's little arcs within it. So there's one of the sections from, 8th to 11th level or so, there's this old grove of arboreals, the treants as they are in a word, who have become corrupted and evil. And this mini arc is, well, let's go in and find out what's going on. You find out some of them actually aren't evil. They're being sort of kind of pushed that way, and you can still save them. And so it's all you want to do is, I want a story from 8th to 11th level, takes place in a forest where saving these arboreal regents is the point. Great. You want a short story about uncovering diabolic corruption in sort of a far north city. Yeah, that's just a couple of levels there as well. They all weave together in the bigger story. But it's also sort of the point where you can be, all right, well, I've got high level heroes and I want to find something for my 15th level heroes to play. I'll get them all the way through the end. Well, you can see, all right, well, up to this point, the PC should have gotten this clue and this clue and this clue. Just give it to them and go right from there. And then you can end up having a titanic battle at the end after a couple of chapters of very, very high level play. It all works. One of the things that I want to point out here is that none of this is exceptionally new. One of the things that has really kind of baffled me about the success of this Kickstarter, in a very good way, is that most of this is already free. A couple years ago on my blog, I had sort of this running series of articles about how would you build a campaign from 1st through 20th level? What would it look like? What would the individual chapter, how would they break down? What would the themes of the chapters be? And I kind of worked, certainly not in order. I think I started with chapters 3 and then 16 and then back to... So it's a mess to try to put it all together. But what this Kickstarter is putting it all together from chapter 1 through chapter 20, added in all the stats so you don't need to be looking them up, added in a lot more maps, added in a ton of art, made some tweaks along the way to have everything sort of flow a little bit better background, to anchor people into the story, sort of a stronger through line to get to the conclusion. So it's everything kind of polished up from what I had done a couple years back in sort of the experiment of how would you even do this? I did it.
And so you could get the final product now, and then you can still go back to your blog on Runabout Games and kind of see how it all came together. If folks are interested in like how to create an adventure, all those blog entries are still there, right?
They absolutely are. And if we hit the appropriate level of stretch goal, you don't even need to go back to the blog because we're going to add a designer commentary into the product that'll be me doing exactly that. Here's what I learned when I threw up chapter 5 on the blog versus the chapter 5 that's here now, and what changed and why, how it makes for sort of a more cohesive, better, stronger story, and how you can use that to make your own stories more cohesive and stronger. So
that's awesome. Is there anything else you want to tell us about Skaldwood Blight before we move on to another adventure that takes place in the Frozen North?
Sure. No, all I want to make sure to do is give a huge shout out to my friend Owen Casey Stevens. Mm-hmm. He's the one who's actually running the Kickstarter. I've never run a Kickstarter. I know nothing about them, and it's only his mentoring and his real expertise that has me even to the successful position that I am today, knowing that we can even carry this forward to other stretch goals and the like. So big thank you to Owen for that.
Owen's a treasure. He's been working with us on some projects over here too, and he is just the kindest, most generous guy and just a treasure. So I'm happy that he's been able to help you with this and work with that. He's somebody you want in your corner, for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, Mike, it does seem like this adventure might kind of, align a little bit with your Skaldwood Blight. This is Quest for the Frozen Flame, Broken Tusk Moon, and takes place in a similar locale with some mischievous fae, some frozen north. And we've talked a little bit before we started the interview. We've talked a little bit about kind of the background of the adventure. Kind of what excited you about this particular story?
Well, the thing that was most interesting to me about this is that I have 3. I can't pick. Can I say 3? Can I say 3
Please.
things that excite me about this? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. First, it is an absolutely non-traditional setting for us. It is not a town where the mayor asks you to go do something, you go off, you fight, some people. This is the whole environment in which you are in is different from a cultural perspective. That is to say, this is a place where you are built into one of the Mammoth Lord followings. You live your life as part of a small community, following a herd of giant mammoths. Everybody that you have with you, there you go. Everybody that you have with you in your community is personally important to you. You know who they are. You know the rivalries that are there. When some of the rivalries start to come to the surface, that is a much more personal way to have the adventure experience. And it's different because you've got these hunter-gatherers, very different than any sort of agrarian type of society. A lot of those things are really weird and unusual for the Mammoth Lord. So being able to be immersed in the culture. Okay, that's thing 1. The thing 2 is the opportunity to fight a tough creature right out of the gate. I don't want to give any spoilers, but I was when we were talking about this, we're like, okay, one of the very first fights is against a level 3 creature, your level 1 party. That is a recipe for disaster for the most part. We do it sometimes. We kind of try to lead you up into that. But what we're able to do in this is, all right, well, if we know that's going to be the initial get together for the story, how do we frame it to be not just roll initiative, and then you're going to make attack rolls and fight the monster? How do we make it feel like it's part of something that is important? How do we make it feel like a hunt? How do you put advantages in your favor, knowing you're going up against a much stronger creature? If you are part of this sort of hunter-gatherer society who has frankly done this a lot, you're getting the wisdom of the following with you in order to enact it at the table. I think it really, even from the very first encounter, it sort of immerses you in that feeling. And I thought that would be an exciting thing to do. And then number 3, I got to work with my wife, who is fantastic. She handled just about anything that dealt with how you interact with the other people that are in your following, and who the leaders are, who the people that you maybe don't like so much, why you might not like them, who they are. That has been a lot of the real personal element that she gave. And I suppose if you're going through this, I would say just about any place where you're like, oh, that's interesting mechanically, that would be me. Anytime you're playing through this and you're thinking, oh, that's really interesting narratively, that's probably my wife.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you, because we're recording this on Valentine's Day, so I had to bring up your wife, Stephanie. And I think this is the second adventure path y'all have written together after Age of Ashes,
Yes.
Tomorrow Must Burn. So
Yes. We did. Yeah, the third one of Age of Ashes was very much the same. Her role in that one was a little more focused in that we said, all right, we're going to write this. She's like, I'll write this section, this NPC's background and personality, right? We divided it up that way. This adventure was a lot more collaborative. We had some of the things that I was taking some of the writing lead on, but she would provide an awful lot of input to. And there's some things where she would take the initial crack and then put in something like, here's what this hazard ought to be like. Mm-hmm. Ron put in the numbers. All right, I'll put in the numbers for a particular hazard or trap or something. So we kind of went back and forth with each other quite a bit on this one. It was a really satisfying endeavor.
That's awesome. Let me get back to a little bit to your first 2 points too. And I was particularly taken with that very first encounter that you talked about here. And there's a lot of kind of preparation you can do to get to that encounter. There's a couple of things you can do to kind of even the odds a little bit more in your favor. Right. And the one interesting thing I think about this book is that when you normally maybe think of the kind of hunter-gatherers, there's a lot of hunting involved and a lot of kind of going out there and stalking prey and killing it, bringing it back and skinning it. But a lot of the encounters in this book, if folks maybe aren't so keen on hunting, a lot of the encounters, you'll be surprised. You don't know if you're going to walk out of that with the hide of the creature, or a lot of times you can befriend that creature. You can learn some skills from other people in the following some feats in particular, that you can use to bring these creatures home with you and add them to your following. Kind of tell me a little bit about that mechanic, because I really like that.
More than any adventure path we've ever done, man, this is the one for the people whose players like pet mechanics, right? Mm-hmm. If you've got an animal companion, there's almost always a place for you to bring your animal companion with you everywhere you go. There's an opportunity to get more animals that you're adding, not just to your own character, but to the following as a whole. Mm-hmm. And so one of the ways that the Mammoth Lord followings grow is by accreting other creatures to the menagerie that they follow around. But it's also a lot of other individuals. Mm-hmm. The thing, and this maybe gets back to point number one, the fact that this Broken Tusk following is filled with people who've had no other home to go to means that, first of all, a lot of different character types, many more than you might expect, are welcome in this adventure path. And secondly, it means that a lot of the people that you encounter, you might be, you're not just a bad guy, shooting a bow at me because you're just a villain to be knocked down, right? You're in this situation maybe because you don't have anywhere to go. Come, let me talk you down. Join us, right? And we have a life. You're willing to work hard and be part of the following. You could be part of us. So it's not just creatures that you get to bring along, but it's also people. And a lot of the creatures, and even some of the people, are exactly the opposite of what you might expect, right? Well, Mammoth Lords, of course, you encounter, mammoths and you join. No, there's a lot of other creatures. It's been a lot of fun to take any kind of megafauna, giant tapirs and things like that, and not only set up encounters with them, but think, okay, what's the following going to look like if they have giant tapirs running around with porcupines who don't like to be touched, and with the titular mammoths that they're following around? So,
and what do you do too? Yeah, one of the things you do too is you use the leadership system in the game mastery guide, so that not only are these people maybe joining your following and kind of existing in the periphery in the background, but you can you get a couple of lieutenants who are maybe a little higher level than the other followers, and then you can go and choose one of those lieutenants. You can trade about here and there, I guess, but you can have one lieutenant as a member of your party controlled by the GM, and these are not just necessarily, not to spoil anything, not just humanoids necessarily. There's a few other unusual options of this extra party member that you can bring along. And I thought that was so much fun too. Tell us a little bit about that, maybe a little bit more.
Well, and that's a very interesting balance mechanic, and it's hard to do. And frankly, credit to Patrick Reaney, our developer, for this, because he's the one that wanted that built in from the beginning and gave a lot of good guidance to me and Stephanie, the authors of the other two adventures in this adventure path, about how to really make that happen. And that we should be mindful of keeping an appropriate power level. It is, after all, a game in which you gain levels in order to face more and more challenging foes. But he really challenged us to think, all right, well, what could we do even within that framework to get ourselves some new and very interesting members into the following to be able to accompany the characters as they go?
That's just one of those things I love. Like back from even playing some of those old CRPG games back in my college days and high school days, where you could get these unusual companions in your party. Thinking of like, oh, what was that old game? That had the not Icewind Dale, but there was another one. Did you play any of the old computer RPGs?
Some of those very old ones back in the day. Yeah, I mean, even some of the Neverwinter Nights, Baldur's Gate, some of the old Might and Magic games way back in the day. The people you get in your party were just the strangest sometimes.
And this just brings all that to my mind, and I love that mechanic, and I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what other lieutenants might come along in the next couple of books too. So kudos on that. I was also going to ask you a little bit about this is an adventure path that's in 3 parts, so you're only going up to like level 10 or so, I believe. Is there any difference in writing an adventure path that kind of you're writing a third of this adventure path rather than a sixth? Do you approach it in any different way when you're writing kind of a larger portion?
The biggest change is the scope of the arc, right? If I'm writing something that's going to go up to 6th level, I've got a foreground as close to the beginning as I can in the first adventure. Here's what the stakes are, and in many cases, here's so you can kind of see ahead to where you're gonna go, right? Some impossibly tough villain far in the future. That scales differently when it's only 3 parts, and it scales to be much more personable, right? You can have somebody this is a warlord that leads a rival following, right? That's something that feels kind of mid-level, and maybe that could be somebody you go up against at a 1 through 10 arc. It doesn't have to be a frost giant jarl who's got, ice powers galore on top of an army of frost giants. All right, that'd be kind of the enemy you'd want to set up for a level 20 fight. But this was, so the scope is a little, is adjusted when it's 3 parts. There's also a lot more of the narrative arc of all of the characters. If you've got a 6-part adventure path, it's maybe important by adventure 2 or 3 that the characters feel like they're really important to the nation, to the clan, whatever it is they're involved with. Here, it's important to have the players feel that on an earlier basis. So not only at very first level, you feel like it's important that you're part of this community, but by the end of this adventure, you feel not only are you an important part, you're a vital part who is charting the course in a lot of ways for this following, even if you're not the leaders. What you say, what you advise is really important, and that happens just in the course of the first book. So it's a swifter narrative arc that way as well.
Oh, gotcha, that makes sense. And you were talking too about you drew inspiration from like the Conan movies for Skaldwood. A lot of the Pathfinder adventures draw inspiration from various cultures, mythologies, and stories. Was there any particular place that you drew inspiration from for this book?
Well, this was what is it, 10,000 BC was the movie that has a way over the top scene of a bunch of cavemen hunting mammoths. Like, that's the kind of thing you want to do, right? Do we have nets we trap them with? Yes, but they are plainly woven by hand, and it's a tragedy when they get all janked up because somebody has to fix that, and then somebody's probably you. So it's that sort of the wild barefoot hunters throwing spears at mammoths was some of the background for this. At one point, Patrick even shared with me through one of the work. He's like, I see where you're going with this scene. Here's how I'd like to go instead. And he sent me a clip of that movie. I'm like, oh, okay, completely got it. I hear you.
That's amazing. What do you have any tips for game masters who may be wanting to run this adventure? Anything for them to keep in mind?
Yes, if you have characters that are on type for this thematically, right? You got barbarians, you got rangers. They absolutely will find a home. If you have characters that are off type, you got somebody who loves playing a gunslinger or something like that. We've got an adventure path after this one for them. Outlaws of Alkenstar, that's the one for them. If you've got players who like the middle, this Quest for the Frozen Flame is still a good place for them. If you got somebody who is an academic elven wizard on the run, right? Well, they could join this following. They would be useful. You got somebody who wants to follow a god of gore. You have a cleric of Gorum, the god of battle. All right, that totally makes sense. But even like a cleric of Irori, who is about self-perfection and is monk leanings. they're the kind of people who might find a home in the sort of the meditative seasonal lifestyle of these people as well. I think you'll do very well to not feel like you have to restrict your players' choices of characters maybe as much as you think you do, because the way we've built this is to be accepting of a bigger set of potential characters than the theme initially lends itself to. And I think that's a great place to explore for the players.
It seems like one of the major themes is just the power of the found family with this. If you agree.
Well, that's one of the things that has made this such a personal endeavor for me and Stephanie. We got 3 kids and they're all adopted, right? So we live a found family experience every day. Yeah. And it's really beautiful, I think, for us to be able to take that and make it such an internal and important part of this story. It meant quite a lot to us.
It's a great adventure path. Part 2 arrived yesterday, so I'm eager to dive into it. I just finished this one, so I'm going to go dive into part 2 and check it out. Last time we talked to you, I asked you kind of if you could tease anything that you were working on, and you said, well, I'm working on, Quest for the Frozen Flame. And so I was wondering if there's anything else you can tease us with that you're working on these days. I don't know if it's been announced or something you can tell us about what you're doing lately.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I think that there's one of the things I've done quite a bit is widen a lot of the work that I've done. Still doing a lot of work for Paizo. I'm just about to turn in a project that has not been announced yet. I better not say anything about it. But I've also widened to do a lot of Starfinder writing for both, not just for Paizo. I've got part 3 of their Drift Crash Adventure Path I'm very excited about. But also some other third-party Starfinder stuff. I've had a pretty big part in a rollicking pirate tale, writing the second of a 3-part adventure path for Roll for Combat. So I'm taking the same sort of storytelling that I love and then kind of spreading it around to quite a lot of places.
That's awesome. Where can folks find you if they want to kind of keep up with everything that you're working on? What's a good place to track you?
You can try Twitter at RPG Ron Lundeen. I've got my blog, Run Amok Games, RUNMAOK Games. I update neither of them as frequently as I once did, but as I sort of dig myself out of several projects, then I'm going to be able to keep those up a little bit more. A great place where I feel like I can put a lot of advice for RPG writers, freelancers, give some good guidance to people who are at all stages of this sort of funny path we're on, from just starting out to established to very established. I feel like I learn a lot from other people that I work with in this industry, and I want to be able to share some of that back.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. When your next project comes out, I hope you'll come back and talk to us and level up to 3.
I'll be third. Third level. Who doesn't want third level? All right.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Broken Tusk Moon, the first of 3 books in the Quest for the Frozen Flame adventure path, is available now for an MSRP of $24.99 or $17.99 for the PDF version. There is a free player's guide available at the link in the doohickey down below to get even more information. Book 2, Lost Mammoth Valley by Jessica Catalan, will be available on February 23rd, 2022, so it should be out now. And Book 3, Burning Tundra by Jason Tondro, is expected to be released around March 30th. And that one features a Mammoth Lord archetype because I know you're wanting to put those Mammoth minis here to good use. And Skaldwood Blight's Kickstarter ends on Thursday, March the 3rd. You can pick up a PDF version for $18 with the option to get a print edition sent to you at cost. Or you can get a signed print edition for $150. Many thanks again to Ron for coming on the show today. And hey, it's been a while since we've really talked about the Big Bad Booklet from our friends at Hit Point Press. The Big Bad Booklet is a monthly zine featuring a new 5e boss monster each and every month with stats, backstory, minions, story hooks, and everything you need to run a one-shot or a side campaign. And now you can get digital reference cards and even STL files to print up a mini of the Big Bad right at home. These books are so much fun and a great way to mix in a little more chaos into your ongoing campaigns. This month, come meet the twisted, tangled plant monstrosity, Emmeline Killjoy, a floral foe who was once human but now fumes inside her greenhouse, lamenting her her lost love? Will you cut her down for good, or will she consume you in her tangled tendrils? Subscribe today at bigbads.com. And if you're playing Quest for the Frozen Flame, it's a great opportunity to use a box from the Epic Encounters series from Steamforged Games. Specifically, I would recommend the Hall of the Orc King minion box with 20 different wintry orc minis ready to challenge the Broken Tusk following as they race across the tundra. The box also features a great double-sided map and an adventure book to help you tell a little side story in your campaign. And you'll also want to pick up Cavern of the Frost Giant to give your players a suitably epic conclusion to their side mission with one of the best giant minis on the market. Check out all the Epic Encounter boxes at the link in the doohickey below. And thank you for watching today. Be sure you're subscribed to see all of our Pathfinder content going forward. Liking the video here helps us out a lot. You can find our Queer Finder supplement for Pathfinder at queerfinder.org, and you can find our Kobold Plush Kickstarter at koboldplush.com. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. For now, take care, have fun, love each other, and I'll see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.